Hello, and welcome to the WWIA podcast. We're honored to have you join us in our mission to bring honor, connection, and healing to America's combat-wounded Purple Heart heroes. If this is your first time listening to this podcast, we welcome you. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. Please be sure to tell others about our podcast and leave us a review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. We love introducing you to some of the remarkable people that are part of our WWIA friends, family, and support network. We've had the honor of meeting and forming lasting relationships with so many outstanding American patriots who selflessly give of their time, talents, charitable donations, and life experiences. We could not accomplish and expand our mission without them. Today, WWIA founder and CEO John McDaniel welcomes another one of these exceptional people to the WWIA podcast. Mr. Audie Rock Murphy is host of the Murphy Family and Friends Mississippi Hog Hunt. Audie is an amazing man who's lived an eclectic life. He's a proud husband to his wife Joni and father to 5 children. An Army and Air Force veteran, he retired from the armed services in 1996 and then went on to serve as a police officer for 15 years and also served as a firearms instructor for the United States Navy. In addition to hosting an annual WWIA event for the past 11 years, Audie currently co-owns and operates with his brother Ray Quiet Professionals Defensive Firearms Training, a Mississippi State certified business where he instructs and leads an enhanced concealed carry course. In Audie's downtime, you can usually find him in the field, on the water, or enjoying time with friends and family at Dan B's, a Murphy family-owned restaurant and bar in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, and a longtime supporter of WWIA. Without further ado, let's join John and Audie now.
All right. Hi, I'm John McDaniel. I'm the founder and CEO of the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, and this is our podcast, Honor, Connect, and Heal. So today, I'm super happy to have a person on that who I admire a great deal, who's done amazing work for the foundation for 11 going on 12 years. And as far as I'm concerned, he's one of these great treasures that we find in America. A great personality, wonderful individual, and he's got a name that's suitable for such an illustrious person. It's Audie Rock Murphy. Welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, John. I really appreciate you having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah. Well, I had to tell you, I can't wait to meet you in person. It's been 11 years. I said once upon a time that after 5 years I'd go visit people, and I just couldn't make it happen. Things got too crazy, too big, too fast, and not too big, but there's just growth, and I couldn't get out there. And then I said, okay, at 10 years I'm going to go see him, and here you are on 11, and I've never, half my staff's met you, and I've never met you. So I'm living vicariously through everybody in the operations that you do to help our combat wounded. But let's talk about you.
All right.
Okay, I'll do a little bit of an introduction here. So first off, you got a great name. I said this morning to one of the staff members, I was like, I'm on a podcast with a guy by the name of Audie Rock Murphy. Everybody just calls him Rock. I said, no, that's a cool name, isn't it? And they said, yeah, well, that he's got to be Irish. So I got to ask you, are you Irish?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, I got some of that. I got some of that in me too. That's phenomenal. So anyway, so you for just the wave tops here, and then we'll do a deep dive. But you've been supporting the foundation for 11, almost 12 years. You do a hog hunt, and that's a Gulf Coast hog hunt. It's on its 11th year.
Yes.
You do the Salt Grass Lodge red fishing event. That's on its 7th year.
Yeah, that's in Buras, Louisiana. That's an awesome event. That's something that you need to try and make one day.
I know I do. I can't wait. I love red fishing. That's big bull reds too, right?
Well, it's anything. It's slot reds, it's bull reds, it's black drum, it's speckled trout, flounder. whatever bites the hook.
I love it. And that's it.
Yeah, but the big
Go
goal is, if you catch a bull red, that's a big plus. That's what everybody shoots for.
When you say a big bull red, that's just a big mature redfish.
Yeah,
right?
it's over 27 inches. It has to be 27 inches to be considered a bull red. And they're actually females. They're not males. They call them bull reds, but they're females. And once they get that size, they really want you to throw them back because they're the breeders.
They're breeders.
Yeah, so most guys don't want you to keep them, and you can only keep in Louisiana waters. You can only keep one over 27 inches. In Mississippi waters, you can keep one over 30 inches. But we normally typically
throw them back. That's a big redfish.
Unless my wife's fishing with me, she won't let me throw them
back. But well, on the topic of redfish, I don't want to say I fancy myself a good cook, but I do try. I've always approached, the culinary arts vis-a-vis game fish and of course hunting, anything that I've harvested over the years. I've worked really hard at trying to make sure that that's prepared properly and tastes good. And I got turned on to redfish, a recipe for blackened redfish on Paul Prudhomme's.
Right.
Paul Prudhomme, yeah, he wrote a book on and one of the recipes that he highlights in that book. It's a great book. It's Louisiana, Southern style, cooking. But his recipe for blackened redfish and the method for that, if you follow that, man, it's just so good you can't stand it.
Well, actually, ironically, when he came out with that, it became so popular they pretty much wiped the redfish population out, and so they had to put in all these strict regulations to try and bring them back again. So that it's worked out good. It's come out good now, but that was a tough time back then because everybody wanted the redfish. But I love doing like you say, the blackened redfish is probably my favorite. But also, if you do it on the half shell, if you had the redfish on the half shell.
No, what's that all about?
That's when you fillet the one side off and you leave the scales on. So you take and you put butter and garlic and whatever spices you like. You can put lemons on it. You throw it on a hot grill with the scales down, and man, that's phenomenal. And you just cook it until you take a fork and you can flake it off. And
yeah, that's got to protect that. That's got to protect that meat,
amazing.
And so you could get it hot. Right. Yeah, just like I've got a big green egg last night. I did.
Grill, you just get it hot.
Exactly.
Put whatever you like on it, whatever kind of spices. It's awesome, man.
Man, that sounds good. I'm going to try that.
Yeah, you got to try.
I'm definitely going to. You could do that with any fish just about, I reckon.
Yeah, but the redfish has got the big scales, so it really.
Right, so it protects it from the heat.
From being burned.
Right. Outstanding.
But.
Okay, so let's get back to you for a second here. You were. I understand you were in the Army, and that I did. That I think I knew. I knew you were in the Air Force, but because you did both. But you were in the Army. You were an infantryman. Is that not true?
That's correct. I joined in January of '75. Of course, right at the end of the Vietnam War there. And when I turned 18, my daddy told me it was time to leave home and go join the military. So that's what I did, and went to Fort Carson, Colorado, is where I was stationed. And I went to Fort Knox for my boot camp, and then Fort Polk for my AIT, and then out to Fort Carson. So I did that for my first tour, and then it was a bad time for the Army for me. I loved the Army, but the quality of the people at that time, the drugs, the culture, it was just a bad time. So I ended up getting out of the Army, coming back home, got into law enforcement, became a deputy sheriff down here. I was going to school at the University of Southern Mississippi. I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And at the same time, I went to ROTC. So when I finished college, I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Air Force.
Good for you. And then you served in the Air Force for a period of time, and then you got out as a captain. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah, and I retired in 1996 as a captain. Um, I actually got caught up in Bill Clinton's drawdown, and I was a missile officer originally. I spent my first 5 years as an ICBM launch officer in Mount Street, Montana, in the 564th Strategic Missile Squadron. And so after that, I came back home, and I went to Eglin Air Force Base, where I was put in command and control. So I ended up the chief of the Eglin Air Force Base Command and Control Center, but I had to compete against majors, compete against F-15 pilots for major. So obviously I didn't get picked for majors. So.
They like the pilots. The Air Force likes the pilots, don't they?
Oh, yeah. If you're in a pilot wing, you got very little chance to get promoted. But at that time, me and my first wife had gotten divorced, and I wanted to be close to home to kids. So I took that risk, and I knew what was going to happen at the end. But I ended up getting I took the early retirement, but I ended up retiring, in 03.
So let me ask you this: so it's 1975. You're an infantryman, and so ground pounding an 11 Bravo in the Army, right? In 75, in what they referred to as a hollow army. It's right after Vietnam, and So let me guess, you were a little disenchanted with all that.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, the quality of the people. If you could put your X on a piece of paper, you could serve in the military. You could be an infantryman. And the drugs were just
that was not a great time for. Yeah.
No, I used to lay in my bunk at night there. We was in the old mule barn barracks. The old World War II barracks at Fort Carson.
Oh yeah.
3 men bunks. You had 3 bunks in the room. It was nothing to lay in the bunk at night and watch guys shoot up. It was
Jeez.
And that was common.
Wow. Man, things have changed. Thank God,
People
right?
were walking around the company area smoking marijuana, in the open. It was pretty wild, and it was just not a good time, Like I said, the quality of people.
Well, thank God we got ourselves through that. Now I was born in 64, so 75, would have been 11. All that was, and something I was completely insulated from. Obviously, I joined the service 8 years later after you did, so in 1983. But some of that was still hanging around. I went to basic training in 1983 at Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And I remember, there was some of those, some of that element was still hanging around. And of course, the rumors of it were still alive, meaning the rumors of what the Army was like back then, post Vietnam. And then, we eventually, I say the country, I think eventually the country and the leadership within the service branches turned that around.
Right.
We still have an all-volunteer force today, but it's the greatest military in the history of the world.
Right.
Full stop, So, well, that's great. So, so you become an Air Force officer, and we used to call them. Now, correct. I don't know if you've ever heard this term, and I don't mean it to sound pejorative, but the silo jockeys. Yeah, you were a missileer, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. And then let's talk a little bit about your career as a law enforcement officer. Can you tell us about that? I'm fascinated. You spent a long time, the long blue line, right? Tell us about that career.
Well, when I got out of the Army and I came home, I went down to the local sheriff office and told him I wanted to be a deputy sheriff. And my brother already worked for the sheriff's department, my brother Ray. So I went and I saw the sheriff, and he asked me if I wanted to be a deputy, and I said, yes, sir. He said, raise your right hand. He swore me in. He said, you got a gun? I said, yes, sir. He said, go down there and get your uniforms and your belts and all that stuff, and you're going to ride with your brother for a week. And that was my training there for my first job as a deputy sheriff.
How cool is that?
And I was going
That's
to
cool,
college at the
man.
same time for law enforcement, but that was my first experience as a police officer,
Where was that physically? Where are you at that
Hancock
point?
County, Mississippi, Bay St. Louis.
Bay St. Louis, and that's where you
That's
are
where I'm
right
at
now?
right now. Yeah.
Bay St. Louis. I got to tell you, I love that part of the
Yeah.
country. I genuinely do. That whole Gulf Coast region down there, from you can basically, you look at the map, you got New Orleans, and then you start heading east, and you keep going, and all of that terrain down
Oh,
there
yeah.
is a sportsman's paradise. Not only is it a sportsman's paradise, but the people are awesome. The opportunities for a sportsman are awesome. And it's just beautiful.
It's a great place to grow up as a kid. We really had a good time hanging out on the beaches all night, floundering, crab.
Dang right.
It was a great way to grow up back then.
Yeah, I bet it still is. I bet it still is. At least I hope I hope it still is.
It's not like it was back then. We didn't lock our front doors when we went to bed.
Right.
Right. And I wouldn't let my kids run the streets all night like we did.
Mm-hmm.
But,
well, I was talking last night with a good friend of mine who's down here visiting, an old high school mate, and we were reminiscing about growing up in the late 1970s and early 1980s and what it was like in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and the memories that we were sharing and the experiences that we had together, our friends and all this. And we were kind of, and of course, I have two young boys. I got an 8 and a 6-year-old boy, and they're being raised here in Apollo Beach, and their reality of their snapshot of reality today in the year 2023 is dramatically different than the snapshot of my reality in the late 1970s and early 1980s.
Absolutely.
And I got to thinking about that. I was like, but guess what? My dad grew up in the, if you reverse the tape and go in the other direction, my dad grew up in the 1950s. Okay. And I can promise you one thing for sure, that whatever was happening in the 1950s, in Lansing, Michigan, was different. Right. Than what was happening in the 1970s in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, exactly. Which is completely different than what's happening today in 2023 in Apollo Beach, Florida. Right. It's all relative. It's all relative. But those memories that we all have from growing up, especially I think, if they involve the outdoors and sporting activities and this idea of being free, right? Yeah. A free spirit, and
it wasn't about drugs. It was about outdoors. We were whatever we were doing. If we was on the water, we were fishing, crabbing, floundering. If we was in the woods, we were shooting squirrels, rabbits. We weren't out there getting in trouble or doing stupid things, but we were just having fun as kids, and it was just a great time.
Yeah, no, same here. Okay, so let me also say, so you did going back to your law enforcement career. How long did you wear the uniform and serve as a law enforcement officer?
Well, I started out with the sheriff's department. Of course, back then I was making $700 a month, and they took taxes and retirement out of that. So I was with this from 79 to, I think, 81. I went to Waveland Police Department right down the road. They gave me a $50 raise. So I swapped over to Waveland. And then I was there for a year, and the Sheriff's Department offered me another $50 raise, so I went back to them. and then in 1984, I got commissioned in the Air Force, so I went back into the military. When I retired from the military, I ended up going to Gulfport Police Department and working for them for about 4 years.
Okay.
And then I started contracting overseas. Did a year in Kosovo with Blackwater, me and my brother Ray. And then a year I was with DynCorp in Kosovo for a year. Then we ended up in Iraq with Blackwater for a year. then when I came back from that, I got, back in the reserve. Work did that for 5 to 6 years or so. So probably got about 12 years total active police, and then six more years or something reserve.
Interesting. So when you were with Blackwater doing your thing there, I mean, were you because I know you've got a company now. You're a co-owner of a company called Quiet Professionals, which is a firearms training group,
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, we teach.
Yeah.
And we teach the enhanced concealed carry class for the state of Mississippi. We're certified instructors for the state. And so Mississippi is one of the 4 states that has an enhanced carry, not just a regular carry.
What does that mean? What is it? What does enhanced carry mean?
Enhanced carry gives you the opportunity to carry in many more places. For instance, I can go into any school in the state of Mississippi with my weapon concealed on me. I can go to any public building in the state of Mississippi. I can go to a high school football game, a college football game. I can go into a courthouse. I just can't go into a courtroom in session. I can go into the airport. I just can't go through TSA. So it just allows you to, it cuts down the amount of places that they normally can say you can't carry. If I want to go to a city council meeting, I can carry it in there. They can't stop me. So if it's a public building, a public facility with the enhanced carry, then you can carry your weapon. So
is that a series of additional training and testing that qualifies you? And I suppose you're going to get a certification or a card or
correct.
Something that you're going to carry that says that says that you have that credential.
Right. It's a 1-day class, and it has to be a range time in there also. So it has to be 8 hours of training with the range. Basically, it's about safety. The state wants to know that you're safe with your weapon. You know how to properly use your weapon. They want you to know the concealed carry laws, where you can carry, use of force, all that type of stuff. So that's what we teach. And once you get that, you can go back to the highway patrol issues the permits in Mississippi. So then you can get your regular permit. Your regular permit is going to allow you to carry in all our reciprocal states, like 35 reciprocal states. And then with the enhanced, you can carry the additional places inside Mississippi that you couldn't carry with just a regular permit. But once you have the enhanced, you can carry in all these other places. So that's what we
interesting, yeah.
And we do other stuff.
I didn't know that there was such a thing. I'm glad that you mentioned it, because that sounds like a pretty good deal.
Well, it is. Thank God Mississippi is one of the few states that do.
I was going to say that's a state thing, right?
Yeah, it's a state thing. Yeah. And it's sad that the rest of the states don't do
it. Yeah. Okay. So are you still actively involved in Quiet Professionals?
Yes.
And do you have like a clientele that you guys that come see you for these,
right?
To get their concealed carry permit, and then other things, advanced training. I mean, tell me about the enterprise,
we can do
if you will.
Advanced training. In fact, we got a regular enhanced class coming up on the 1st. It's next Saturday. Then we have an advanced class on the 15th, which is a 200-round course, and it's a lot of shooting, moving, a lot of reloading, a lot of malfunction drills, that type of stuff. So it really, really gets you familiar with your weapon.
Excellent. So let me ask you, what do you prefer to carry? What model and caliber do you prefer?
It depends on where I'm going. It depends on the weather. I like to gun down in the summer, and a lot of times when it's really hot, I'll go to my little 380 Glock, my Glock 42. In the wintertime, I'll normally carry my Glock 43, or depending on where I'm going, I may go to my 40. I don't.
Because you got a little more clothes on, it's easier for you to conceal. Right.
So it all depends on the circumstances. But I don't leave home without my weapon. I don't go anywhere. I go to church with my weapon on. I go everywhere, except for military bases. That's the only place you're really limited. Any federal facility. You can't go in any federal facility with concealed carry permit. So.
Wow. Yeah. So, I have to ask you about your clients. Okay. I mean, what would you, I mean, you've been doing this. How long you guys been doing this now?
Well, we've been having the company for about 11 years, I think.
Okay. All right. So what would you say about your average client that you guys are training? I mean, who is this person?
About half the class is normally women. Fraction of those
great.
who never shot a weapon in their life. And I would say 9 out of 10 people who come to the class really know very, very little about handguns. Even guys who've been carrying a handgun all their life, they may carry it, they may have it, but they don't shoot it, they don't train with it. Most people know nothing about malfunction drills, about combat reloads, about shooting and moving, one hand shooting behind barricades. In our class, it's a defensive class. We don't teach people to aim. We're going to teach you to point and shoot, at close range.
Yeah.
We don't. If you want to learn to aim, that's something totally different. All you got to do is put that front sight where you want to hit and pull the trigger.
I spent quite a bit of time in my career and rubbing elbows with some some pretty scary dudes and right, and so and one of them I won't mention his name, but he's got every credential you could possibly imagine, and he's just somebody I admire a great deal, and he became a command sergeant major. And, it was over behind the green fence and, in the Ranger Regiment for a lot of his career and all this and is a legend, really. Is in the Ranger Hall of Fame, all this. And he said to me one day, we were talking about, pistol shooting and all this. And he said, front sight post. My God, front sight post. And I was like, yep. Exactly. And for those of you that don't know what that means, we're just, as Audie just says, Rock just said, I mean, if you're in close quarters, and you're to take a home defense situation, it's dark, somebody's just entered your home, you have a pistol, you'd have got it in action. And, all you really have to worry about is putting that front sight post, not necessarily aligning the rear sight post or the front sight post, because I think that's going to happen anyway, plus or minus, right?
You're going to hear a lot of that on our range, front sight.
That's right. That's good stuff, right? Yeah. That's just good stuff. I got to tell you that I think the other thing, and I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I don't conceal carry. I have my own personal reasons for that, but I do have home defense systems. Right. Of course I do. But the one thing I think, and I'm going to ask you about this because I would imagine that if I had a company like yours, Quiet Professionals, Firearms Training Group, one of the things I think I would talk about, and you probably do, I'm just interested in your thoughts, because I run it through my head, right? I've had an elevated heart rate, we all would. You absolutely would. Right. If somebody had just breached your home and is in your home and intends to do you harm, or the people in your home to do harm with malintent, your heart rate's going to be elevated. Absolutely. There ain't no question about that. And so the question is, for the average person who doesn't have that amount of training, how do you, or hasn't had the experience, right? I mean, what do you teach them to keep that under control as best as you can? Because that's things are moving really slow, but they're also moving really fast, and so what would you say about that? Well,
the bottom, what we do, and we talk about this in our class, and we give them a class on what fear does to your body, how you're going to react when you get into that situation, because it's going to happen. So we try to make people, just like when I worked with the Navy school for 6 years at the Expeditionary Combat Skills course down at Gulfport, Mississippi at the CB base, we teach this class on tachypsyche, basically what happens to your body when you get into a situation like this, and all of these things that's going to happen to you, tunnel vision, and it's just a whole conglomeration of things that's going to go on to you. But one thing we want them to understand is you're going to be scared, and it's okay. And you've got to realize you're going to get scared. Don't worry about it. but it's just getting yourself out of that and get back into the fight. So when we train, and that's why we tell them, when we're training you to scan, we're training you to scan so you can break that tunnel vision. So, a lot of times on these home invasions, it's not one person coming in, it's 2, 3, 4 people. So one, you got to break that tunnel vision so you learn to scan. And then we try and talk to them about gross motor skills versus fine motor skills, how they handle their weapon, how they put that mag in. We teach them to not look at that gun when they're inserting that mag. They keep your eye on the target, where the bad guy is. We teach them to keep their hands close. If they got to load that mag, you got to keep your hands close to your body. Use your body as a brace, because if you're shaking and you're scared, you'll never get that bullet inside that magazine. And we teach them how to load their magazine without looking at that like if it was dark. I tell them, don't look at your mags when you're loading your mags. You got to load that mag without looking. You got to load that weapon without looking. Use your body as a brace every time you can. Don't use your thumb to reach up there and send that slide forward. Use your hand to grab up there. That's a gross motor skill, using that whole hand.
Right.
Because if you're scared and your hands quit working, reaching up there with that thumb is not going to work for you. And that 1 second is what's, would get you in a gunfight in 1 second. Get you killed, right? So it's these little things that we try and put in their mind and their brain that, to understand all of these things that's going to go on when something bad happens and you get to a critical situation like that. So it's a really good class. I think it's an eye-opener for a lot of people. And, we show them videos, too, of different stuff like that. One of the favorite videos I like to show is that, what was that movie at Tom Hanks, D-Day, Saving Private Ryan, yeah.
That's a classic. That opening scene, when I saw that opening scene when it came out, you can't see it because we're on radio, but my hands. I saw it with I don't know who I saw it with a girlfriend or something. I can't remember what, but I was not prepared for that opening scene, and my fingers were, because of the sounds, right? And if you've ever heard a bullet go past your head or hit metal in close proximity to you, you know what that looks. I got chills right now because I had the white knuckle death grip on the chair. And I didn't even realize it. I was leaning forward. I was like, "Oh my God, yeah, that's
you've seen that auditory exclusion that he was experiencing, at that time.
In slow motion. Yes.
And that's what goes on. You never know. He was already a combat veteran, but then in this one situation, he froze up and he got that auditory exclusion going on, that tachypsyche, and he snapped out of it. It may have seemed like 30 seconds to him. But it's really, in reality, just a couple seconds, and it's about teaching people you're going to be scared, but get back into the fight, and that's what it's all about.
That's good. That's good. Well, I can tell you, just to share, an experience. The first time I was in participated in a two-way rifle range, the first thought that came to my mind. And I was leading troops in combat, but the first time that happened, when it became real, and we were receiving effective fire, I thought to myself, I don't care. I'm going to tell everybody, because this is what happened. I'm thinking about it for the first time in a long time. But, I remember very, very specifically thinking to myself, I had a Vietnam style. It was a Vietnam flak vest. Okay, it was way before the ceramic plates and all the cool stuff we got today. I was wearing a Vietnam green, no camouflage, flak jacket that would stop a hand grenade, but it wouldn't stop a 7.62 round. Promise you that. Now the Kevlar helmet I had on my head would, and at least a glancing blow. But this is my thought. This is the thought I had. I remember very specifically. I thought to myself, dude, there's no way you're going to fit your entire body inside of this flak vest or this K-Pod helmet. It ain't going to happen. That was the first thought I had, was how could I turtle into this thing? And then I realized, dude, you got a job to do. Okay, so unscrew yourself right now and get at it. And that moment, It was probably a few seconds, but it felt like it, now looking back on it, getting all into it. But yeah, it was probably just a few seconds. But that was the thought that I had, initially. And you say, hey, was I scared? Yes.
Exactly. You're going to be scared.
Yes, I was scared. And I think everybody else was too. And that's natural, man. How could you not be scared? Anybody who says they weren't scared wasn't there, didn't have that experience. It's what you do. As I was teaching, I was telling my boys the other day, because, sometimes they're doing things that they don't really want to do. And we say our prayers at night, and one of the boys, was praying and prayed for, you believe it or not, to have more courage. This is a little 8-year-old boy, right? Asking Jesus for, a little more courage in his life, which I was not prepared for. So the next day, I thought it was beautiful. But the next day we talked about it. I said, buddy, he's going to answer your prayers, okay? But let me tell you about courage, all right? Courage is just doing the right thing when nobody's looking, one. And courage is also doing the things that you really don't want to do, that nobody else is going to do, or that's courage, and we've seen a lot, courage is, you could put courage on a diagram on a bell-shaped curve, and there's all kinds of courage, everything from simple courage to complex courage, of course. But anyway, that's basically, what it boils down to. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that with us, man. I mean, that's good stuff. I reckon there's going to be people that take heed and have learned a lot from you today, and just the few things that you've said. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
That, the main thing, real quick, I'd like to just, people who's going to carry a weapon, train with it. And I always tell people, when you go to the range, you're not going to target practice. You're going to train. You're training to fight. And you got to train multiple rounds, multiple targets. You got to shoot and move. You got to do your combat reloads. You got to do your malfunction drills. Train to fight. When you go, get out of that mindset that I'm going to target practice. That's what you got to get people to understand.
What helps that a lot, I think, in my opinion, is movement. If you think about it, right? I mean, what I'm taking the fight to you. Mm-hmm. I'm going on the offense. That's a mindset, man. You're in my house. I'm in your, whatever's going on here. But I've already committed to this thing. I'm going on the offense, and that means movement. Right. And as opposed to being static. And there might be a few there might be a reason to go static. Okay, I get it. There's never a never, and there's never an always. I can understand a defensive position that makes sense where you're static and laying an ambush. I get it. But I'm just saying, generally, normally, usually, who I am, I'm going on the offense. Right. If that trigger gets flipped, I'm going on the offense, man. And that means movement. And movement, it takes you out of that target, the plinking targets mindset, right?
And that's what we try to tell people. The more you stay there, the bigger chances you're going to get shot. You got to move.
Darn right.
And how many people practice shooting and moving? How many people practice shooting with their strong hand, shooting with their weak hand, or reloading with their weak hand?
That's right.
People they don't think about these things, and they don't spend the time. But it's hard if you only have an indoor range, because they don't allow this type of stuff. So you have to have an outdoor range to go to be able to really train. Indoor range,
or the wood line. You don't got to have a range.
No, exactly.
There's plenty of places, but
you just can't do it on an indoor range.
Right.
They're not going to allow
multiple
rounds and any type of training like that. So just got to get in that mindset. Get out there.
Well, buddy, I got to tell you something. You when I talked to Karina, I said, you met him. What kind of observations, have you formed on this gentleman? And, I'm going to say the three things that I remember from our conversation that she shared with me, that she just reinforced pretty much what I already knew. You are a quiet, calm, and humble professional. And I thank you very, very much for what you've done. I mean, I added up all your missions you've done. to support our nation's combat wounded. And you used to do an event that, the Shell Beach event. You did that for 3 years. You've got 20 missions under your belt. On average, that's 5 heroes per event. That's 100 Purple Heart recipients that you've, directly impact lives that you've directly impacted, people that American heroes who you've helped and who your family and your community have helped. And that's powerful stuff, man. It really is. And I just want to tell you and your extended friends and family members how proud I am of you and your leadership, how proud I am of you and their support, because these things don't just happen. You're not getting paid to do this. You're 100% volunteer. 100% of the people that are supporting what you do are volunteering to support, this action. And that being, helping our combat wounded heal through the power of the great outdoors and the honor, connect, and heal piece. And I want to say thank you publicly for that. And I also want to ask you a question about that. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely. No, I know it. I know how you feel about it. And I feel the same way. And man, that hits me right in the heart. And I appreciate it. But let me ask you something. Why do you do it?
Well, my family, my father obviously was military. He's retired Army 21 years. He spent over 3 years in World War II without coming home, all the way from North Africa into France, all the way up France into Germany, the whole war. If you traced Audie Murphy's footsteps, that's where my father was. They were in the same division, the 3rd Infantry Division, with Patton and part of that. And so when I grew up, obviously my daddy, all my uncles, cousins were all either World War II vets, Korean vets. And so that's who we were. My first memory as a child at Fort Riley, Kansas, about 9 years old, was watching my father in the 1st Infantry Division load up and heading off to Vietnam. And his best friend, the first sergeant of the unit, 3 days after they got there, was killed. And his wife and my mom were best friends, and us and his kids were best friends, and him and my daddy were best friends. So that was my first experience with somebody dying in a war, as a kid. And of course, that sticks with you. When you grow up. And then,
darn right.
When my dad went to Vietnam, he came back, he retired after Vietnam. You saw, it was just like there was, my dad comes home from the Army, he takes off his uniform, puts on civilian clothes, and that's the end of his military, and there was no parades, there was no people meet him and greet him and help him do anything. It was kind of a lonely time, I think, for him, and so, we all down here, especially in the South, we love our veterans, we honor our veterans, and I was at a point in my life, I was working for the Navy at this time. All the kids were gone. It was just me and my wife in the house. And we're like, you know what, we need to do something. We need to do something for veterans. I want to do something for warriors. And I got to looking around and looking through some of the different organizations, and I came across the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation, which talked about Purple Heart recipients and hunting and fishing. To me, what greater combination is there? And when I was a little boy, I guess I was about 9 years old. My father grew up in Gulfport, Mississippi, and on that property they had an old store there, and they ended up shutting it down when his brother died. And so they had all these boxes and junk. They used it as storage. And I was in there. I always rooted through there because to me it was a lot of treasures, digging through stuff. And I found a little box that had a Purple Heart in it. And I didn't know what it was. I looked at it, and it was in an old box. And I turned it over, and it had Kenneth F. Murphy on it. That was my uncle Kenneth. I didn't even know this at that time, really. He was my daddy's 19-year-old brother who got killed at the Gothic Line in October 44 in Italy. And so that was his Purple Heart. And my older brother, Kenneth F. Murphy, is named after him. But of course, as a kid, I didn't even really understand this. But I took that Purple Heart, and I still got it to this day. in the original
Mm-hmm.
box. And every time we have an event, I'll set it out on the counter with his picture, so people can see that. And these guys, as much as they sacrificed, it's basically a reminder that, like we always say, some gave all and all gave some. He gave all. And I hope that it helps them to look at their life. Well, you know what? I might have had a bad deal, but I survived and I'm here. And guys like this didn't make it. So the Purple Heart thing just kind of became a special thing to me. And so I can't think of a better group of people to be associated with than any military people, period. Law enforcement, first responders, that's my hero. I don't care anything about sports heroes. It's about these guys who are willing to go off and die for their country. And to me, anybody who joins the military, knowing they can go overseas and could get wounded or killed, is a hero. But the ones who shed blood on foreign soil, to me, they are special. And they deserve to be recognized and honored. And that's the way, not just me, but my whole family, all our people down here look at things. And that's why the community loves these events. And so many people want to help. You can only do so much. That, I got a lot of help. But everybody loves these guys. When you talk about, hey, I got some Purple Heart guys coming over, everybody's like, hey, I'd like to come meet them. I want to hang out. And so they deserve that honor and they deserve that respect.
Well, that's great, man. That's a great story. I really appreciate you sharing that with us. That's some meaningful stuff right there. And you're right. I mean, you just touched on everything that I feel inside to this day. Even 17 years after having rolled out the first event that we ever did. That feeling that you just described has never left me. It's still very much inside of me and very much motivates me because I feel like you do, like, hey, I mean, these are great Americans. They went off and they rose their right hand. Mm-hmm. They swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over them. And tomorrow was not guaranteed. And they put on that uniform and they went off to a foreign land and they did their job, and some of them came home and some of them did not come home.
That's right.
And some of the ones that came home never going to be the
That's
same.
True.
Physically, emotionally, mentally, and all that. And so we here in America, a certain, a small, segment of the country, of the population, guys like me and you and thousands of others out there who've come together and said, we're gonna find a way to recognize and honor those that went off and did that. Mm-hmm. And we're going to do it in a way that we're comfortable with, and we're going to do it in a way that we like and enjoy, and we're going to open our homes and our hearts and our waterways and our land, and we're just going to show you how much we appreciate what you did. And we're not going to ask for anything. Right. We're not asking for anything. I mean, this is we're serving you. We're going to do that the best we can. We're going to do that to a high standard, and this is our expression of how much we think about what you did. Right? Isn't that it?
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you what, the satisfaction that brings inside of you, if that don't make you feel alive, then you need to find another thing to do.
You're not lying, because it's an amazing feeling, very gratifying feeling to do. And
it is.
And it's an honor.
It certainly
really is a huge honor to say I'm associated with these people.
I agree with that 100%. And it is a small subset. The other day I was at I was asked to speak at in a thing, and I did, and I said, okay, hey, I want to recognize all veterans, so if you ever donned our nation's uniform, please stand up and be recognized. And let's just say that 10 10 people did. And there was probably, 100 people there. And, so 10 people stand up, and it was a little older community than typically what I'm used to speaking in front of. It was a kind of a retirement community, so it made sense. And I said, okay, please remain standing if any of you have ever, if any of you were wounded in combat and received the Purple Heart. And 4 guys stayed standing and the rest sat down. And so, here we are, 100 people, 10 of which served, 4 of which, and that's a high number, 4 out of 10 veterans having received, in that crowd, because there's usually none. Right. I've been in front of, spoke to, 200-300 people in a crowd and asked the same question, and, those, our events attract, our fundraisers and community dinners and this kind of thing attract veterans. And sometimes they're even done, at veteran service organizations, the VFW is the American Legion. So there's going to be a higher percentage of veterans, per capita in that event than running around, in the Walmart. I can tell you that. But, it's a small segment of our society. And it's even a much smaller segment that actually gets wounded. So I think and feel in my heart that they're certainly deserving of it. And when you get a community like you have behind you, with great people that love and trust, feeling the same way, some pretty amazing things can happen. Right. And hey, I mean, you live in a very unique part of the country, and you're also sharing. This is what's cool about this, and you probably, I don't know if you've thought about it, but I spent a lot of time thinking about it, but sharing the great things that go on in your community, the culture, the rich culture that's there. And when you look at that and compare it to, say, the culture in northern Wisconsin, where my camp is, they're just they're equally magnificent, but they're also dramatically different. Absolutely. And it's so cool to share. As we continue to serve this population, they get, we try to reserve them, these guys and gals every couple of years, But for them to get a chance to go up to northern Wisconsin as an example, and then head down to, to the Gulf and spend time, in Bay St. Louis and in your stomping grounds, or whether that's Arkansas or, North Carolina, wherever we have an event, these heroes are getting an opportunity. They're getting an opportunity to explore and experience all these wonderful, rich cultural activities and communities and wonderful people who are all volunteering. And you know what? That's got to feel pretty darn good when you come back from and that didn't happen, as in Vietnam. You watch your daddy come back. That didn't happen.
Nothing. Just
nothing. Zero. Take off your uniform, put clothes and drive on, and like it didn't happen. Yep. Like just pretend like it didn't happen. And that, I've always said that was sinful. That was sinful. And I said to myself, when I was going to college at the University of Wisconsin, before I was even commissioned, I said, I'm going to do something. I don't know what I didn't know what it was at the time, but I said, I'm going to do something about that. I'm not just going to serve our country. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do that as good as I can, but I'm going to do something, that helps turn that ship a little bit and right some of the some of the wrongs that were, and I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. It was a different time. But you know what I'm saying. So anyway,
it's like down here, like my father, when I turned 18, he told me, it's time for you to leave home, boy. So he signed me up in the Army, and he told me, he said, look, it looks like, Vietnam may be starting back up. You may have to go. He said, you got to go do your duty. This is a guy who spent almost 5 years of his life in war.
Wow.
And he's telling his kids, you need to do your duty. That's.
Yeah, where is that today? Where is that today?
That's why we're such a great
nation.
Dang
right there it is.
That's what made us the nation that we are, is that mindset.
Yes, sir.
And
It is.
You got to wonder now, is it still out there? I mean, we definitely got great guys. I've seen them all over in the military. I've seen them in Iraq. Every Kosovo. There's some great guys that are willing to step up. People who, men and women who want to get out there and do this stuff and do these things. But as a culture, are we lacking? Are we falling behind? That's what we got to figure out as a nation.
I agree with that, but I'll tell you what, man. That's why guys like you and me and all these other wonderful people out there that are helping this mission move forward. That's where we come in. This is our line to toe, if you will. Somebody got past that. Somebody's got past that torch.
Yeah, exactly.
And show them what right looks like. Right. That's what I think.
And I think every little bit that we do, all these little events, all the people who get involved, it does perpetuate, and people see that in the community, and it grows. And that we got a number of organizations down here doing warrior fishing events and hunting stuff, So it just shows that if you do things like that, other people are going to do it too. It will grow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. And that's good. That's all good. That's anyway. Well, listen, I'm going to give you the last word here, my friend. And give you a chance to if you have any saved rounds in your magazine, you should here's your opportunity to expend them.
Yeah. Well, I guess the one thing I would like to do is just thank all my crew and my family, my friends. There's so many people that's involved in this. It's hard to pin some down, but of course my wife, couldn't do it if she didn't support me. And she likes to get involved in this and cook and do stuff like that. My good buddy Terry Taylor, who's my right-hand guy, awesome guy, 30 years police officer in Alameda, California. He spent time in Iraq with the 10th Mountain Division contract. My Uncle Dave, who's a Vietnam combat controller, who's been there and done that. And the Warriors just absolutely love being around Uncle Dave. He's got more stories than you can imagine. His knowledge, but I've got so many people, my buddy Josh Gibson and Lee Robinson, who do the hog hunts, the main hog guides, Mr. Ronnie, Monica A. Macker, they do the dog hunt for the Warriors. And I got even Joe Liddell now helping me out down here.
Great American.
I got like my nephew Ben, he's a Marine vet, combat vet. He helps out with the Warriors. There's just so many of them. My brother Ray and his sons Daniel and Raleigh, Daniel with Dan B's restaurant. They help out a lot. And I want to mention Captain Raymond Smith at the Saltgrass Lodge. Him and Chief, who's a guide, Ike, his son, a guide. If you've never done any red fishing and you want to go to Louisiana Marsh down in Buras, Louisiana, look up the Saltgrass Lodge. That is an amazing time.
I've seen the pictures. Yeah, those guys are top notch, man. That's a beautiful facility too.
If you never fished the Louisiana Marsh or the Mississippi Gulf Coast, if you ever get a chance to come down here, it's just an incredible place. There's so much to do down here, so much water to fish, and we do everything. We hog hunt, we gator hunt, we fish, we do, you name it. And I'm literally 2 blocks from the beach. I can launch my boat in 5 minutes, and I tell my warriors all the time, you're welcome to come back anytime. All you got to do is call me and say, hey, I want to go fishing. And
that's awesome.
More than welcome to accommodate them. But we love our vets down here. We love our warriors. We love doing these events. The community loves doing it. And we just, everybody looks forward to it every year, of getting back into it, getting involved. So it's just a wonderful time. And then, believe me, it is our honor to do this. We love doing this kind of stuff.
Well, you're doing it great, buddy. You really are, and we're very proud of you, and my hat's off to you, and so all the heroes that we serve are, big salute in your direction. We certainly appreciate your service to our country and your family's service to our country and your community's continued service to our country by helping these great American combat wounded Purple Heart recipients out. And it's been an honor to have you on the program. You did a great job today.
I appreciate it.
And absolutely, and we appreciate all that you continue to do, and we wish you and your family and your community continued prosperity and good health. And thank you very, very much for your time today. This is a great show.
My pleasure, Jim.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And you have a blessed day. The rest of what's left of it there. Okay.
I will. God bless America and our troops.
Yes, sir. God bless America. Thanks, Rock. We appreciate you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
To learn more about the mission of the Wounded Warriors in Action Foundation and how you can get involved, please visit our website at wwiaf.org or follow our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Thank you for listening to the WWIA podcast and for helping us honor, connect, and heal our combat wounded Purple Heart heroes through the power of the great outdoors.
If you like what you're listening to here and would like to join our team in our mission to bring healing power and recovery to America's Purple Heart heroes, please become part of our Sponsor a Hero team by clicking on the link in the podcast notes or by going to wwiaf.org/sponsor. That's wwiaf.org/sponsor. Our heroes need you now more than ever. Thank you.